Hello and welcome to this video. In this one we're going to be looking at extracting PDF vectors in Kubla Cubed. So a lot of you might be familiar with tracing contour lines and points off a PDF file, but in Kubla Cubed you can also extract the vectors from the PDF, which can be a huge time saver. Now it's worth noting that it's not a perfect process. PDF wasn't designed to transmit CAD data, it was more a print format primarily, so it doesn't contain stuff like elevation information or the data you would hope from a CAD file, but it can work a lot of the time and save you a lot of time. So we'll dive right in. Okay, so we'll be first taking a look at this PDF. So it's a simple site plan which has got existing and proposed contours. It's worth noting that the contours here are continuous, so it's going to be quite easy. If they're dashed, it can be a bit harder. We've got a major contour in a thicker line than the minor contour, so we'll be talking about that in a bit. So okay, I've brought the site plan into Kubla Cubed and scaled it. I've used the quick measure tool to check the scale as well. So what we're trying to do is bring in those contours into a feature surface. So we're in the existing phase, we'll go plus feature surface. And those of you who are used to the software will know that there is this outlines, contours, break lines and points buckets. And we're going to be trying to bring the contours in this case. So we click on the contours tab. Now, if you've been doing tracing, you'll have been using this button to trace individual contours. But what we're going to do is we can click on the plus from file, and then it should list all the plans that you've got in the software. So in this case, we've got this example takeoff project. I'll click plus, and then what it's going to do is trying to turn that into sort of CAD entities, and then it will pipe it through our CAD importer. So we've got our data here on the left and the stuff that we are importing on the right. Now, this is exactly the same process for CAD data. So if you're familiar with that, it will be familiar, but there's a few differences in terms of how it works. So with the CAD importer or PDF vector importer now, what you need to do is set a filter to tell the system, I want entities that are similar to this. It's like select matching entities. So it can pick up based on color, based on line width, based on other factors, layer, what other entities to do. So rather than selecting them all individually, we can go new filter. We select, say, a little sample. You want to kind of keep it as small as possible because often the problem is you bring in too much data and it's difficult to sort. So you can see what's happened here. It's bought some, but you've got some missing. So what's happened is that filter has picked up just the minor contours. So we also need to do another filter for the major contours. So that's worth watching out for. Sometimes they're in one set, sometimes they need two filters to go through. So let's see, I'll just redo that one because I don't think maybe I selected the wrong one. I think it might be this one. Yeah, okay, so that's added the major. So we've got the whole set there, but looking at this, I can see there's a problem because we've actually picked up the text as well. Now in PDF, like I said, it's not a CAD format, so text isn't necessarily represented as text. It's represented here as line work. So it's similar line work to the contours. So it's kind of been brought in because it's not properly separated. Now there's a couple of tricks we can use to get rid of this because we don't want these bits of text importing into the contours. We could either crop, so that is one technique which we'll be looking at later, but in this case what's useful is we can kind of remove short lines. Now these are all little lines, so by using the remove short lines filter, it will kind of remove all those little ones that we don't need. In a lot of situations that is useful. See how as I move the slider they sort of disappear, so they will come back again and then they disappear. So that's a really handy trick. So that's a pretty good extraction from those existing contours. So we can click simplify now is a good idea. Now contour lines brought in from PDFs often have way too many points because it doesn't really matter for visualizing in a PDF apart from performance, like how many points there are. But in a calculation program that's based on tins, it does make a big difference to performance if you've got tons of points representing lines. So we recommend thinning the lines, like simplifying them basically. So you can see, if you zoom in, you can see the original line in gray and then the simplified one. And when you zoom out, you can see they're very similar, but they've reduced the points from 13,313 to 1,600 in that case. So that's definitely worth doing if you bringing in contours from PDF. So, okay, they've all brought in now. Now, you might be sort of disappointed at that stage because they don't have elevations. It could be possible in the future for us to extract from OCR detection using it and that kind of thing. But the current state of the technology is that PDFs don't contain elevations, so they come in not set like this. Now, the tool that is really useful for setting them is this set multiple elevations tool. So if you click set multiple elevations, and then what we can do is we can strike through a group of contours and set them as a batch rather than setting individual ones. So if I strike through that batch, the tool says, okay, what's the start? So the first one it hits is 1276 here, so 1276. And then the interval is 0.5 in this case. You can see from the contour goes 1276 to 1276.5. It's obviously ascending here, so click continue and then finish, and then it will set all of those as kind of a batch. Another handy trick is if you sample two that have already been set, it will take that as the starting point. So let's use the tool again, so set multiple elevations, and I'll select these two and just continue it along, and it sets all those others based on that first sampling. So set multiple elevations, I'll go up here again, continue, finish. So these ones down here have kind of not got selected, so I can do another final line down here. If you see on this list, you can see the ones that are set and you can see the ones that are not set. This is really like more of a piece on how to use the set multiple elevations tool. It can be useful in CAD as well if you've got CAD files with that have been flattened, they haven't got elevations, which does happen, but it's very necessary when you're doing PDFs because they always come in with not set value. So I'll select this one as well. We don't need that, so I'll delete that one. The other tools you might want to use here are join and split contours, but we'll be addressing that later when we look at PDF vectors coming in separated or with gaps. Okay, so we're ready to, I think, create a surface. So I'll just create a extrapolate outline in this case. Just trace a square around it. And there you have the existing surface taken off from PDF vectors, like probably 4 or 5 times faster than if I was manually tracing them. So it's definitely worth having a go. Okay, so here's another handy tip, which I haven't actually touched on so far. So when you're importing PDFs, you can get lucky, and sometimes the PDFs have layers. Not always, quite often you'll find a PDF doesn't have a layer system in it, but if it does, it's worth checking. It can be really handy for like removing data that you don't need, which makes it easier to filter. So in this case, we actually have quite a few layers. So I could, for instance, unmark all the layers apart from proposed contours, and then that makes it easier to filter. So that's kind of just a little tip worth checking when you import PDF. If it has got layers, you can turn off the ones that you definitely don't want to import from, and then it makes the filtering a lot simpler. Okay, so next we'll look at extracting points, and then we'll look at some challenges that you can face in this and how to potentially overcome them. Okay, so here we have a points in a site plan. So the process for importing these is kind of the same. So we click on, from the elevations panel, we click plus, feature surface, and then I make sure I'm in the points tab, and I select the PDF, and we set the sample. Now it's worth noting that with the points, quite often the text is stored in the PDF as sort of shapes, because there's often a lack of fonts. So if the font's not supported, it will store it as these shapes, and that means we can't read it currently. So don't be surprised if some of the points imported aren't, they don't have any elevations. Now we're working on improvements, but for that, it's still quite useful for showing you where the points are. Like as you set the points, you can see which ones you've done and which ones you haven't. If you want to zoom in on one, you just click on it and press there, and it will zoom into the point so you know which ones to set. So it can be a bit of a time saver, but it's not as useful as the contour lines. Okay, in this scenario, what we have here is a PDF that has contour lines and it's got gaps where there is text to show the elevation. This is quite common and can be a problem in PDFs because sometimes the lines extend underneath the text and sometimes they stop and it's actually made up of different parts of lines. Like again, because PDF is a print format, that doesn't matter so much for printing, but when we're trying to extract data from it, it can be a problem. So here I've loaded and scaled that plan, and we'll try and start an extraction and I'll show the problem. So we click on the add, we first start with being in the contours bucket. Then we click on plus and extract that, wait for it to turn that PDF into vectors. And then when we go new filter and select this one, I think there's major, minor ones in this. So that's the major ones, I believe, or one set at least. And then we select this second set. So it's picked up the lines nicely, but it's got like gaps, and that we could join all those with the join tool in Kubla Cubed, but it's going to take some time. So what we do is we have this option here which says fix line gaps, and that runs an algorithm which tries to automatically join lines together. So it's, if you slide it along, it will start joining the gaps. So you can see down here, there's originally 207 lines. It is dropped down to 190 because we've joined so many. Now you can have problems with it over joining, like joining too many, or under joining. It's probably best to leave it a bit under and then join the last few manually, rather than, it's harder to sort out over joined lines with the split tool. We're always improving this algorithm, so it's getting better and better all the time. So in this case, it can join a good amount of them, but the last few you're going to have to join. So it's joined a lot of them there, but there's a few sections here it couldn't do. So you'll have to, I'll sort of bring it into the program quickly. What you would have to do is join the lines manually. So we select one that's not joined. So this one, so you select and then hold down Control and select another. And then you can choose this option, join, and join them manually. Now it's a good idea to join all your lines. You can join multiple sections at once. So if I select this one, and this one, you can join them all in one go. Now the reason it's very important to join is because when using that SME, the set multiple elevations tool that we were looking at earlier, it's not going to work so well if there's loads of little bits, because it works on intersections of lines. If it's intersecting just a small segment, it will set that elevation but not the rest. So having a continuous joined contour set is very important. Okay, so here we have another challenge, which is a PDF that is split over multiple pages. So what this requires is to stitch the site plans together, which is covered in some of our site plan videos. Now the problem is, how do we select those contours? So sometimes you can have 4 pages stuck together. So you're going to do 4 separate extractions and then join them all together. So that will be time consuming. So we have developed a better solution to that. Now the key thing that you have to make sure though when you're doing this is to make sure that the PDFs don't overlap. So here we actually have the PDFs overlapping, which isn't good, because it's like when we try to extract them, they're going to be like overjoined. So like if I hide this one, you can see that it kind of, they extend over the top. It looks fine for manually tracing, it would be fine, but for PDF vector extraction, what we do is we automatically try and join PDFs on across pages. So if there's lines that cross a page boundary, we try and automatically join those based on a tolerance. So in this case, you know, you can see that it's not going to work very well. So what we do is we'll change the crop to make sure that there's just a small gap there. So I'll go edit this one and we can go crop, and we need to adjust this crop. Like first of all, maybe it's best to do it way over to see what it looks like. It's quite hard to do this, but it's kind of worth spending a bit of time. So I can see I've almost got there. There's like a big gap there. So I don't think that's going to automatically join. So I'm going to just try and edit this one again and like move it over, crop, see what that looks like. It probably could be adjusted a tiny bit more. There we go. So when we do the extraction now, and we'll go through how to do that with multiple pages, you want it ideally so when you zoom out, you can sort of barely notice that there's a gap there. So we'll do an extraction, click on contours. Now, instead of selecting an individual PDF here, you can select all PDF plans. So that will try and extract them all in one go, and it will run that algorithm to join at the boundaries automatically. So let's have a look to see if it's worked. So I'll do a filter. Okay, that's maybe too big a filter. Okay, so I've got that there. Remove the short lines, just like we did before. Click finish. Actually, I might simplify first. Click OK. Okay, so now I'll put it to the test. When we double click on that line, it's a single continuous line. So I don't know if it's worked on all of them, because some of them here have not joined satisfactorily, or they've joined but in a slightly strange way perhaps. Let's see, I can see there's some slight problems here that it's kind of joined them like that. So maybe some of them require some slight modification, but if you make sure those gaps are correct, it should do a good job of joining them together. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be looking at is cropping. So when you import the PDF vectors, you can actually crop to a region, and I'll show you that in action. So if you click plus and then feature surface, click on contours and then extract. So in this case, what we've got is we want the contours, but only the ones that define this feature here. We don't want all the extra stuff that we've pulled in from the entire site plan. So what we can do is use this tool here, add crop. So you click on add crop and then trace, and then I can just trace the area I want. This is probably mainly going to be done with proposed, where perhaps you're using the offset method and you want to only have the contours within a specific element that you're working on. In the offset method, you break the proposed into different chunks, so this kind of works well for that. There you go, we've got the contours just in that area and not all around. Another workflow that can work quite well, I'll just start another feature surface, is to define the outline first. If you defined the outline around your proposed feature first, let's see, we've done it like this, and then finish. When you come to extract contours, there'll be another option which allows you to crop just to that outline region. So when we click, after creating a filter, when we click add crop now, there's additional option that says ground outlines. And then if we click on that, it will crop to that ground outlines region, and we can click OK. And it's the same sort of thing. This could be quite useful if you have a road and you've defined the road perimeter first as an outline, and then you want to bring in the contours only in the road. You could say crop to the outline and it will bring in the contours only in the road, which can be quite useful. So we'll click OK, and that's the same result. Okay, so the first challenge we're going to look at is a problem where you're trying to import outlines, but the line that you're trying to import isn't closed. So outlines have to be closed in Kubla Cubed, and the CAD import will only import closed lines. We are looking to change that to a new system that's a bit more forgiving, and you can close the lines after import, but for now that's the case. So let's say we want this outer outline. Now, what's worth noting about this is these inner ones are closed. These outer ones aren't. They go to sort of the edge of the page. So you can see that it's actually picked up from that filter, it's picked up a lot of closed lines here, but hasn't picked up the outer one. So that's kind of a bit annoying. So we would have to maybe trace that. It's a bit hard to see, but you can see this line hasn't been imported, or it's not been detected rather. So what we recommend in this situation as kind of workaround is in the measurements panel, there's a lengths element which can just take closed lines or unclosed lines. So one thing that you could do is import an outline first into that one. So we'll go here and then sort of close it, sort of finish it and close it. And then you can copy and paste it into your feature surface. So if I click on that one now, it detects all the lines because the length doesn't matter whether it's open and closed for the length. So then we could prepare it and then just copy and paste the bits that we need into the other one. So that's a kind of workaround for that situation. Okay, so just before we finish, I know touch on one other tip which can be really useful if you have CAD software. So if you look at the importer here from the PDF, there's options down the bottom to export to a CAD file for the PDF vectors there, and we can export also the filtered vectors. Now, this is really useful if you want to sort of tidy up the extraction in CAD software, which can have more powerful tools for doing certain things. So like removing duplicates, stuff like that, joining. So that's worth knowing about. If you do have CAD skills, then you can go export to CAD, tidy it up in there, and then import it back as a CAD file after you've saved it. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the video. I hope it was useful. If you've got any feedback, please post in the comments below or on our forums. We always are interested to hear your feedback on this process. We're improving it all the time in updates. So good luck on your projects, and I hope this speeds up your process.